But then, to shift gears to absolutely massive international news, Israel and Hamas have agreed to a ceasefire. Probably. Because as of recording this video, mediators like the Qatari PM have said that the agreement is set to go into effect on Sunday. But at the same time, they're also saying that some details are still being hashed out. And this also is any agreement still needs to be formally approved by the Israeli cabinet and the government. Though with that, Israeli PM Bibi Netanyahu has said in a statement that officials hope that the remaining concerns will be worked out sometime tonight. But then also here, according to NBC News, Israel's Supreme Court would have an additional 24 hours to allow an appeal. But Hamas, for their part, has not only confirmed but celebrated the ceasefire deal as an achievement for its people, with them describing it as a historic moment in the conflict with its enemy and praising Gazans for their, quote, legendary resilience in the face of the war. And so with all this, we gotta talk about what exactly is in this agreement, or at least what we know so far. Because I will stress this again, this is all developing in real time and we're learning about it as we go. But with that, the deal seems to be some version of a 3-phase deal that's been floated for months. Right, so in the first phase, lasting 6 weeks, Hamas would reportedly release 33 Israeli hostages. And to give some context there, Israeli officials say they believe 98 hostages remain in Gaza and that only 60 are still alive. And so with that, among those to be released first would be women, children, men over the age of 50, and men under the age of 50 who are wounded and sick. And in exchange, Israel would release hundreds of Palestinians held captive. And specifically, according to Reuters, Israel will release 30 Palestinian detainees for every civilian hostage and 50 Palestinian detainees for every Israeli female soldier Hamas releases. And then in addition to that, the first phase would also reportedly involve the withdrawal of the IDF to a buffer zone in Gaza near the border with Israel. But with Israel saying that it won't completely withdraw from Gaza until all of the hostages are returned. But this is also their now agreeing to withdraw from 2 specific parts of the territory that have been, as Axios has explained, a sticking point in past negotiations. But in any case, on top of all that, the deal would also reportedly allow Palestinians to return to northern Gaza, which, like a lot of the territory, but possibly more so, has been absolutely pummeled by Israeli strikes, been largely cut off from humanitarian aid, and been the site of multiple forced evacuations that aid groups say only made things worse. Which on that note, the deal would also reportedly require 600 truckloads of humanitarian aid be allowed into Gaza every day, with 300 of them, right, a full half of them specifically allocated for the north. And again, right, that's all just phase 1. Phase 2, that's still reportedly kind of up in the air, with the 2 parties only agreeing so far that negotiations over a second phase should begin by the 16th day of phase 1. With that phase then reportedly meant to bring about the eventual release of all remaining hostages, including Israeli male soldiers, a permanent ceasefire, and the complete withdrawal of Israeli soldiers. And then finally, if we get that far, a third phase would include the return of all remaining dead bodies and the start of Gaza's reconstruction, which it's believed would be supervised by Egypt, Qatar, and the United Nations. And so there you have people wondering, what this is really going to look like long term. For example, a Gazan professor of public policy speaking to the Washington Post asking, who's going to govern Gaza? How will reconstruction be carried out? Who's going to commit resources and financial means for this reconstruction? As well as asking, will Israel cooperate or will Israel introduce obstacles? And finally saying, the big missing element is political settlement or a political proposal to end this conflict. But of course, for the most part, anything to end the fighting is being celebrated as a win, at least by politicians. With, for example, Biden issuing a statement applauding the tentative agreement and emphasizing his role in reaching it, saying, I laid out the precise contours of this plan on May 31st, 2024, after which it was endorsed unanimously by the UN Security Council. With him then going on to add that the deal is the result of both the extreme pressure that Hamas has been under and dogged and painstaking American diplomacy. With him continuing, my diplomacy never ceased in their efforts to get this done. With him then also delivering a speech shortly after where he outlined the details of the deal. We then also saw President-elect Trump chiming in and taking full credit for the deal, writing on Truth Social, this epic ceasefire agreement could have only happened as a result of our historic victory in November, as it signaled to the entire world that my administration would seek peace and negotiate deals to ensure the safety of all Americans and our allies. With him then adding, we have achieved so much without even being in the White House. Just imagine all of the wonderful things that will happen when I return to the White House, and my administration is fully confirmed so they can secure more victories for the United States. And notably with that, we saw experts saying that while Biden does deserve praise for his work on the negotiations, Trump isn't wrong here. Trump has insisted that a ceasefire be put into place by the time that he takes office and threatening great consequences, with some officials and experts then crediting those threats and helping move negotiations along. With this including the head of the US-based Center for International Policy, who said the fact that the 2 sides have finally reached a deal after Trump's threats ironically shows how effective actual pressure can be in changing Israeli government behavior. But for now, I'll say while it looks good and we hope that it is good, we're going to have to wait to see how successful this deal actually is. And that is also assuming it does not fall apart in the last minute, which we hope does not happen. Hey, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this clip from the full Philip DeFranco show. And also, a big thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring our Clips channel. Turn your passion into profit over at squarespace.com/filler. Use the QR code. Because whether you're launching a business or a lucrative side hustle, your website is your digital business card. It's the only space where you control the story, no algorithms or distractions. And with Squarespace, it's so easy because they got a ton of stunning professional templates with drag and drop editing that makes site design incredibly simple. No coding required. So get started for free at squarespace.com/filler, or scan the QR code on screen and use code PHIL for 10% off when ready to launch. Squarespace.com/Phil.